I like to present ourselves in front of the team as if we are two individuals. We just happen to be married in the background, but like they don't know a lot about that. And we definitely don't fight in front of them. And I think there was a time on some employee reviews, we actually got bad feedback on that.
Yeah.
And to me, that was super embarrassing.
Are you wrapping cars more than 12 hours a day, every day? Working nonstop, but can barely get by? Burnout, missing deadlines, and wondering just how much longer you can keep this up?
That was us too. We started our wrap shop buried under $250,000 in debt, and it felt absolutely impossible. But we dug out, built a profitable shop, and are still in the trenches of owning and operating a wrap shop. We're here to share what we learned along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did.
And we're here to help you with the business side of the wraps, like pricing, building a team, streamlining your systems, ultimately so that you can run your shop and your shop stops running you.
Welcome to the WrapOps Podcast, brought to you by Wrap Fam Unleashed. So if you turned on this episode, I can take a guess that you probably run your business with your significant other, and hopefully you truly care about them and your business. That is definitely the goal. And you probably know how hard it is to try to have a personal life and a professional life so intermingled at all times. And from the bottom of the heart, I can definitely validate that this shit is hard. There is like no sugarcoating trying to run a business with your partner. I've personally tried looking up many videos. I think you've caught me a few times of like trying to find other entrepreneurs that talk a lot about it. You can find a couple out there, but a lot of the times you meet other couples and they're like, I would never do that. Horrible idea. So I am nervous to sometimes talk about it because I don't know, we're just kind of trial and error and telling you guys what has worked for us, and maybe it won't work for you, but it's gone great for us. So hopefully out of this episode, you should be getting the do's and don'ts of operating a business with your person that you hopefully love the most, and how to balance such a tricky dichotomy. So for a little bit of context of this episode, me and Andrew, of course, are married. So if you're new, welcome to the WrapOps Podcast. We're married and we own and operate a shop together. We've been doing that for about the past 7 years. And for the conversation today, I prepared some fun questions, and Andrew has no idea what they are. So you're getting his authentic reaction.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And throughout these questions, we should cover some main topics like how and when to communicate to your partner, a big emphasis on the when. I think that's a big thing we've learned, is that part is just as important as the how. A tool for determining your core desires and fears so you don't use them against your partner. So it's kind of like knowing what their kryptonite is and specifically dodging it on purpose.
Yeah.
And then what we personally do to make it all work. So you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, I am ready.
So what do you think has been the proper mindset? So we're really focusing on the mindset here in regards to our professional relationship. So like when you're at work, do you think of me like, oh, that's my wife that just walked in the room? Or how do you go about dealing with me during work hours? What's your mind like?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Obviously, you are my wife, but I try to understand that you're a partner. You're just as much as I'm a member of the team, you're a member of the team.
Yeah.
And, we're here to put in some work. So still obviously my wife, it's not like that ever, goes away. But when we're clocked in, we're clocked in. We each have our jobs, our responsibilities, things that we're accountable to, and got to get our work done.
And I would say you definitely lean more professional for sure. Like we do have a staff. There was a time where we didn't have employees, and so maybe like the lines would blur a lot, and we're like hugging throughout the middle of the day or something. Yeah. Whereas now it's definitely a lot more professional, unless I'm like having a rough moment. We're like in our office or whatever, and you give me a hug.
Yeah, it's different. But I mean, we have a whole team now, so I can't just like grab your butt in the middle of the day.
Yeah, we don't do weird PDA. I just think like I wouldn't, if I had a couple on my staff that was dating, I wouldn't want them to do it. So I try to kind of follow that golden rule of if I wouldn't let the team do it, why would I demonstrate that type of behavior? But you're pretty good. I would say in the beginning you're almost too good about being professional to where you were almost a little harsh.
Yeah. And
in the beginning,
we were in a tough time at the time as well. Just business was literally on fire. So it was kind of hard to not break out of that, kind of extremism of we have to get through this to survive. So it was kind of hard to break that mental barrier.
And building on that a little bit, in the very beginning, it definitely felt like I remember complaining all the time. I'm like, I don't have a, at the time, boyfriend. I don't
Mhm.
have a boyfriend. I have like a boss.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like co-partner. It was like, you are my boss. It was this kind of odd relationship that I think took us a few years
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
figure
it
out.
took some
It
time.
didn't come quickly. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, and I talk about this recently or often with our friends and stuff, is we had a business coach at the time who stopped everything and was
Mhm.
like, when are you guys going on a date night?
Yeah.
And you were like, absolutely not. We don't have time for that. And I was like, I would love to go
Mhm.
on a date night. And I remember that was our homework for like the next month, was like, even if it's just going to dinner or something, or sitting down and having a meal together and not talking about work, like, you have to have a minute to just be like normal human beings and not just these two humans that are just working around the
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah,
So,
that date night ended up becoming, literally for the entirety that we worked with that business coach after that, was like the number one question. And it was the only question, if it wasn't getting done, was just, did you guys have a date night? Like, who cares about the numbers? Who cares about literally anything that's going on in the business? Did you guys have a date night? Which I think over the years we've leaned into that. We still do our date nights. We actually have a date night like right after this recording. But it it ultimately pushed into like the communication, which is what ultimately came out of that forced date nights, as you will, back then, was
yeah.
just us talking to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it also, I think there would be times throughout the day, like randomly at, 11 a.m., I'm trying to talk to you about my feelings in our relationship, and you're like in the middle of problem solving mode, something at work. And
Yeah.
so it kind of set a space of like, can we talk about this at that time?
Hmm.
Like, so really planning out your time. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later in this episode. Okay, so moving on to our next question. What is your number one complaint about working with me?
Oh, that's tough and
It's
on the
tough,
spot.
on the spot, in
Yeah,
public, let the
on
whole world
air.
hear it.
Number one complaint of working with you. Man, it's tough. Admittedly, I don't like. I enjoy it thoroughly. Like, I'm having the time of my life working with you. Hard to try to pull a complaint other than it just we have two different personalities. So, and it I would say it started as a complaint and it's grown into like just understanding that you need to have a little bit more fun than do or require, just at work, but just in life in general. And I don't think that's really a complaint more than just our work differences. Like, I might as well like work any other job where I'm like clocked in and dialed in from the moment I start to finish, where you have a lot more sprinkled in fun and spontaneity throughout the day that I would say maybe started as a complaint or like an annoyance, but since I realized that you actually work at your best with that, so you need a little bit of fun or reward or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, and I think I even said it in a previous
Hmm.
episode, that if you could, you would run a sweatshop. And I don't operate that way, so it's very hard to be married to someone and run a team of employees with someone who, I think I've kind of corrected
Yeah.
maybe your mindset on that, me with a bunch of people. But in the beginning, that was really tough to kind of stand next to someone who expected that out of people and out of me. And I'm like, I don't even really want to do that, which is funny because you kind of answered my next question, which is, what do you think my number one complaint is about working with you?
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of like the lack of fun. And I think that introducing fun into our shop has been one of the most free and successful resources
Yeah.
that we've had. Trying to balance the fun in the work is hard,
Hmm.
of trying to figure out when is too much fun to where you just have a bunch of group of people just kind of horsing around, because we've had that.
Yeah.
And then we've had so serious that you can drop
And
a pen and it's scary.
I think to elaborate on that, just so that fun isn't like a trigger word of like we're going to an amusement park in the middle of the day, and it's really just a in a session I sat in earlier today was talking about the empathetic leader and kind of leaning into that. So maybe it's less of fun, but more of just take 3 minutes to talk about whatever you did that weekend or something like that. That is not something that I traditionally have done, like historically. It's very much been, I don't even talk personal. It's just, I'm, a man on a mission, like trying to get this business to where I wanted to get to. But now just taking the time of, a team member mentioned that she went to her little brother's band, like concert performance over the weekend. So taking the 4 minutes on a Monday to check in and be like, hey, how'd that go? So I think that's a change, I guess, that I've had to make.
Yeah. And I think that could be a whole separate episode
Yeah.
of introducing fun into the workplace there. But taking that exact same advice and mantra and also applying it to your partner. Like this morning, Andrew was at this big networking event. First thing out of my mouth, how's the event? How did it go? And sometimes I forget, and I didn't used to be like that. I would just, rattle on about this is what went wrong at the shop, blah, 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 while you were gone. And then it's like this giant stress bomb. And so trying to take a step back and how was your morning? How was this? How did this meeting go?
Yeah.
So taking time to check in is definitely a big one, which rolls into my next question, which is how would you describe the way that we communicate to each other? And do you feel like it came naturally? It can be both in a professional setting and in a personal setting. You can separate it.
Yeah.
Say it
And
together.
I think it would be naive to assume that you can actually really draw a concrete line in a professional relationship and a personal relationship when you're running a business with your significant other. Like it does overflow as much as you try to keep it separate. I would say I would say talking to you has come natural. Our cadence in which we've had to dial in of when is like a free and open space and when isn't, and stuff like that. Because talking to each other isn't always, rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes it's, hey, when you do this, I really feel a type of way. And you have to have a hard conversation. So that probably isn't the best thing to have at the end of a 12 or 15-hour day or stressful employees.
He's learned that the hard way a few times.
Yeah. Like that's not the time to have that tough conversation.
Or at that date night
Mhm.
isn't typically the time for feedback.
Yeah.
We both have messed this up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's not like he's done it perfectly and I've done it perfectly.
Date night is not the time for a performance review. We've definitely made that mistake both ways. It's like,
Yeah.
hey,
It's
like
also sometimes not the time for strategy, although sometimes it is. Every now and then you're like on a brainwave and you're like vibing, but sometimes I'm like, look, I'm just brain dead right now and I just don't want to talk about high level thinking things.
Yeah. And I think that to each couple, you have to learn each other as well. So I've definitely have seen, the teachings of like, oh, you have to separate, you have to go home, you can't talk about work at home, but
it's like impossible.
It is impossible.
I actually don't know how people do that. I wish we could. Like it seems cool in theory.
Yeah, I would say it seems cool in theory, but I think what breaks that is just why should we not talk about something that we're passionate about doing or something that we're passionate about or excited that we just built or about to build or something along those lines. So yeah, I don't know. I'm in favor of it. Like if it's you have that creativity spark at 9:00 at night in the middle of a date night, and it seems like both of you are vibing, then ride the wave. But obviously, you have to be respectful. I think we're kind of getting to is sometimes I want to ride that creativity wave at 10:30 at night. And,
oh my gosh, I'm trying to sleep. And it's just like, what if we did this? And what if we did this? And I'm like, write it down in a diary. I don't know. Tell me later.
And I think that's part of just learning your partner and making sure that your communication is on point and respectful of the person you're communicating with. I know that something that we've talked about before is sometimes I think it was the ADHD CEO. I think he was interviewed on a podcast or something that you had brought up, and it described me pretty much to the T where I'm coming up with like crazy ideas and like theories of just like what ifs and we could do this and look at this crazy thing. But your brain works as like, oh my gosh, you just put so much work on our plate. We have to, and I'm like, whoa, no, that's like 5 years from now. Like nothing we even have to think about today, tomorrow, or next week.
Yeah. So if you understand me and Andrew's kind of working relationship, he usually has these like huge ideas and visions and is like, this is what we're going to do with the company and this is the road we're going to take it down, which I hear as, okay, Tanner, here's your next task on your plate.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to like keep the installers installing and the designers designing and the prints going and blah, blah, blah. And you're going to lock yourself in an office and you're going to get this done. On top of the other 5 ideas he had yesterday and the 4 he had the day before.
Yeah.
So it gets very stressful. And in the beginning, I think I used to just like freak out and shut down on that and like literally go home. Like, I'm like, I can't handle this. I don't even want to work with you anymore. Like, it
Right.
would be this huge explosion. And now I'm just like, that is a wonderful idea. Let's stay focused on what we are doing. Or do you want me to stop what I'm doing here to make time for that? Those are like your 2 options.
Mhm.
You know, like you can have A or B, but you can't have both
Yeah.
together. And typically you're like, oh, no, don't stop what you're doing. I just thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think a good thing too is if you have a place to kind of store your ideas and sit on it, and if it's still a good idea in 3
Mhm.
months, 6 months, then it was a good idea. But a lot of the times you kind of will write your ideas down and you're like, it
Oh, yeah.
wasn't as good
Mo-
as what I thought it
Yeah,
was.
most of the time, the majority of the time, the idea is a good idea in the moment, but it's actually a terrible idea
Yeah.
if you come back to it.
Right.
And I think that is good to identify like kind of which, and it's not like, so this is kind of theory would come from like Traction or the entrepreneurial operating system. Traction is a book within that series, and then Rocket Fuel as well.
Those are the books I just mentioned actually in the last episode.
Oh,
So
did you?
we're referencing.
Awesome.
We read it together. So
Yeah.
that's probably why we're both referencing it.
And I think that's a good, just kind of, it helps with husband and wife duos, but also just partnerships in general,
Mhm.
of identifying the visionary and the integrator. And it doesn't mean one person is 100% the visionary that only comes up with good ideas, and the integrator is the only person that actually goes and implements those ideas. It's a much more ebb and flow than that. But
yeah, and it's more on like your personality and stuff. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
little more detail oriented in process, where you're more like abstract thinking.
Yeah.
I guess you would say.
And
So,
I think that just being able to identify that, because it's a very untraditional to the CEO, COO, CFO kind of executive roles,
right.
when it comes to a partnership.
And it's also not really the time and place to like in my family, we have very strong women, very strong feminists.
Yeah.
And it's not the time and place to be like, well, I'm the wife and I say no.
Yeah.
Or I'm the wife and I say yes. I don't think I've ever pulled that card.
Mm-mm.
We're very good about not pulling a wife or a husband card. I'll pull it at home,
Yeah.
you know, and say like, I'm tired. Can you get dinner? Please, you're my husband.
Mhm.
You know, like I'll pull that at home, but I try my best to never pull it
Yeah.
at work, and especially not to pull it in front of the team. I like to present ourselves in front of the team as if we are 2 individuals. We just happen to be married in the background, but like they don't know a lot about that. Now that doesn't mean at lunch we don't talk about, oh, this happened, you know, last night with our dogs and it was so funny.
Yeah.
We'll tell personal stories all day long, but we don't do PDA in front of them, and we definitely don't fight in front of them.
Right.
And that was actually, we haven't been perfect on that. And I think there was a time on some employee reviews we actually got bad feedback on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And to me that was super embarrassing, and that was all I needed to hear, and that problem was fixed right away.
Yeah.
But the
And
fighting.
I was to say it's highlighted to the employees as well. So like we could just be arguing as professionals at our work,
Mhm.
but the perception to your team is, you know, mom and dad are mad at each other.
Yeah. And there have
So
been
you have
times we
to-
disagree.
Yeah.
In front of the team about things. And once it gets to the point that I can tell one of us is starting to get like nasty, I'm like, why don't we continue this conversation later? And they pretty much know that's the line of like, okay, they're going to go fight in private, you
Yeah.
know? But we definitely disagree in front of them.
Mhm.
And I think that's fine. But I also don't want the team to think Andrew calls all the shots or Tanner calls all the shots. Like either of us is allowed
Yeah.
to disagree with what the other person is saying. But the other caveat there is if it's that person's department or role, and I'll talk about this in the next question about kind of divvying up your roles.
Mhm.
We try not to give each other feedback in front of the team. It's more of like mental note, like, I wouldn't have done that. And then in private said, hey, this is what you said earlier, and I'm just nervous it came across this way, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you. And we've messed that up a ton too, because it's super embarrassing to get feedback in front of a group of people, especially from your husband or wife. I don't know why it just like digs differently
Yeah.
than if it was someone else, because you're just like, you asshole.
Mhm.
Like, why would you like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to make a point here and you just derailed it. And, you know, So then you start feeling a type of way. So we try not to do that. And that comes in with that finding that correct time and place for feedback. So a big thing that we do is our weekly meetings. We call
Yeah.
them weekly owners meetings. So those are relatively new. I feel like we're
Yeah.
on just a few months of doing this. I think we've tried doing meetings, but this is the first time it has like a set agenda, a set time,
Yeah.
a set place, and it's the most professional it's ever been.
And I think it had to grow into that because we aren't essentially on top of each other working like we used to be. Like we used to be on the same room, managing the same few employees together every
Or like
single
wrapping the
day.
same car,
Yeah.
literally. And now
So
we're like, I don't know what you do all day, and you don't really know what I do all day.
exactly. So yeah, we've had to now have our weekly owners meetings, which is because of that. Like we're kind of running our own departments, in charge of our own things, and we've always kind of drew the line in the sand and been in charge of our own things. I don't know if you plan on elaborating on that a little bit later,
Mhm.
but this is the most divided our work has ever been, where I have 100% ownership of certain departments, as you do as well, that don't really overlap, and we're not playing in the same sandbox. So
Yeah.
we have to have those owner meetings to be like, this is what's going well, this is what's going poorly. I think the number one question is like, on a stress level of 1 to 10, how are you?
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that. And what I can do actually is include the link to our outline of our meeting, and we can
Mhm.
put it in the show notes if anybody wants to just see
Yeah,
what the details of our meeting are and
yeah,
see if that might be something that works for you.
take it, make it your own.
Yeah, and I tweaked it the last meeting. Like I'm like, "Ah, we never answer this question. Like it kind
Hmm.
of seems like a filler, so let's get rid of it." But our first question is just asking how stressed out is the other person. And it's really interesting because the answers could be, I'm stressed out because Andrew takes care of his grandma. And there could be something big going on with her.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that as being a stressor at work this week. Or it could be a tough conversation with an employee, which a weakness of mine is like big confrontation. So like it'll have me rattled all week when
Hmm.
it's something like that. So we do take a moment to ask how the other person's stress is, and it can be a personal or a professional answer on that. And then I'd say the other most important thing is we come up with our top 3 to-dos.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because typically our to-dos usually like help each other out of like the shop's completely slammed, so can you take this off my plate and get this done? Or this person, like this just happened last week, this
Hmm.
person just put in their 2 weeks and now I need you to stop what you're doing and I need this
Yeah.
job ad out and we need to start the hiring process for this person. So the weekly to-dos is a really nice way because you used to just kind of walk into my office and be like, I need you to stop what you're doing and do this right now, and I didn't handle that very well
Hmm.
because I would just be on a brainwave taking care of
Yeah,
something
of
else, and
course.
I'm like, I'm already trying to do the other 50 things that I thought I needed to do for you. So it kind of lets me prioritize my own schedule for the week, and I know what's important. And of
Yeah.
course, you have emergencies and things that happen, but for the most part, checking in every week, I feel like we don't have a ton that changes within a week. It at least makes it a week before going crazy.
Yeah, not typically. And I think what helps, kind of to keep touching on that, is one, the stress level thing. Just side note, because I am working on being empathetic, I typically go into problem solve. So
Mm.
sometimes you might just have to ask that question of, do you just need me to tell you this sucks, or do we need to go into problem solving? So anyway, side note there, if your partner is
Well, and
stressed out,
that's
sometimes they just need a hug and tell them like, yeah, that you should like, this sucks. They
and
don't
the
need you to
label
solve the
there.
problem.
Sorry to interrupt you and
Yeah,
talk over you,
there's
but
a fancy
the
label. What's
the
the
label
label?
there that I always tell Andrew is like, I'm trying to connect with you emotionally and you're trying to be logical with me.
Yeah.
So logical means you're trying to solve the problem. Emotional means like I just need you to like give me a hug and say it's going to be okay.
Hmm.
And even I catch it even with our employees where he'll say, hey, so and so said this to me and this was my answer and they didn't take it well. And I'm like, it sounds like they were trying to be emotional and you were trying to be logical.
Yeah.
And he's like, ah. So, and something that you said earlier that ties into this that I just want to touch on real fast before you
Hmm.
keep going was you mentioned that I had sent you a podcast. Sometimes if I have something difficult that I need to tell Andrew, I will find it in a podcast and I will send it to him because it's almost kind of like an expert saying something that's hard for me to say. And so one of the things you brought up earlier was whenever you bring up a really new and fun idea,
Yeah.
how much it stresses me out. I felt like I was like one of one in that boat until I heard another entrepreneur say he does it and his whole team stresses out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Andrew. So I sent it to you immediately. And I was like, it's a thing. This is really a thing. It's not just me being crazy. And maybe you could also help me work on it with you.
Hmm.
So that's also a really interesting tool too. And of course, your partner has to be receptive to one, listening to the podcast and like not being offended.
Yeah.
So typically we'll send each other podcasts of like, I think this will help with your meeting this week, or hey, this is what we're going
Hmm.
through right now. Maybe we can both listen to this and it'll help both of us
Yeah.
type thing. So
Yeah,
anyway, that's been a really good resource, is just sending podcasts back and forth.
and I think to hit on that a little bit is you have to work on some just like base terms and conditions or just understandings of, or absolutes, whatever you want to call them, is like, I know genuinely to Tanor's core, she's not out to get me. She's not trying to sabotage anything. She's making the best decisions she can for the interest of, what we're working towards. So I think you almost have to like check yourself if her sending me that podcast did make me angry. Like, check yourself. Why did that make you angry? And
Perfect segue.
then you have to understand, like, to her core, she's not trying to stab at me. She's good intent. Like, she has good intent, stuff like that. So you kind of have to have that preface to begin with. But before we segue, uh, I did want to talk about setting those three main priorities. And I think this is something that I've started to do recently, especially since we've gotten out of the wrapping cars every single day. So once you kind of bridge that, break out of that to where you're not responsible for wrapping every single card and you have a team and stuff like that, and you don't have a boss. The weirdest part is like, well, what am I going to, like, what do I work on today? Because before it was very clear that big old unwrapped van is clearly the priority, that I have to get that done before the customer picks up tomorrow. And it's not like that anymore. Now it's, I have to pick and choose. We have to pick and choose what is the most important thing to work on today. And that owners meeting allows us to figure out what the three main priorities are for the week. So if we get nothing else done, but we get these three things done this week, like that's a win. What are those bare minimum three?
And it's never like you said, get this van done, get this
Right.
project done. It's always like, get an ad out for this
Mhm.
job hire. Or like, I think one for this week specifically was like a marketing calendar that we need to stick to because we're not being consistent with certain organic marketing.
Yeah.
So it's more higher level thinking, um, things that we need to put together. Like we're putting together training systems for the team.
Yeah.
That's a big one. But sometimes you'll be in the middle of building something that's going to help you in 3 months, and then a small fire happens.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, pause that for 1 second. Let's fix this and then go back into what
Yeah.
you're doing. So, and that's been a really nice part of the way we've split recently with our jobs, that you're more like kind of operations and I'm more of like lock myself in my little pink office and get my work done. So that's been really awesome. Can I segue now?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on to my next segue. I would say a huge thing to also do with your partner is it's uncomfy, is to figure out their triggers.
Yeah.
So that you know exactly not to poke at it, which is really crazy because it's kind of like you're holding in your hand, like what will break them, which like I feel like every husband and wife wants to know, like, I'm going to throw this at you on your, whenever you're being rude to me. But it's like you're knowing it, you're holding it in your hand so that you can just like drop it, put it away and like not use it. Do you remember how we did this? It's been a minute.
No. Go ahead.
So one day I went wild and I made everyone on the team do an Enneagram.
Oh, the Enneagram. Yeah.
It actually went crazy. We
couldn't
ended up
remember the
like
name of it.
sending it to our friends and it was so interesting because, and I'll also include the link in the show notes for this Enneagram test we did. It's free. And I believe they email you your results
Mhm.
right away, but we were sending it to everyone and it was almost creepy how spot on it was for every person. And it kind of takes the result. It asks you just a bunch of questions. I think you have to pick between two options on all of them. And it's kind of hard. And, it tells you what your core fear is, your core desire, your core weakness, and your core longing. And I'm telling you, it is wild. So I went back and I pulled up my results. I tried to find yours and I couldn't find what yours was exactly, but I do remember your core fear.
Mhm.
But for me personally, so my title was like the moral perfectionist, which is so funny. If you knew me, you would know, oh God, that's Tanner. My fear is being evil, which also, if you knew me, that's very fitting. I very much like want everyone to feel comfortable and loved, and like, I don't know, it's a weird thing about me. And then my longing is to that I am good.
Mhm.
You are good is my longing. So I think I have a hard time in our relationship if you're like, oh man, you said something to that person, it made them feel horrible. I'm like,
Yeah.
I did. Like, and I can't sleep at night over
Mhm.
it. So it has to be like brought up to me in a very delicate way of like, I think you had good intentions, but it came across this way, or things like that. So anything that makes it feel like I went out of my way to just ruin someone's day, because I
Yeah.
don't feel like I ever wake up trying to do that. But I think as a business owner, unfortunately, people think you do that
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
very often, and that's been a hard thing for me to cope with, and it's kind of made me personally crash and burn a few times. Because of course, everyone has the angry employee that walks out the door, and
No, that's
they hate you, and I don't deal with that well. I've gotten
yeah.
a lot better, but
So
it took time.
I want to hit on that actually a little bit. And this is probably a little bit of a tangent that could probably be in its own podcast at a later date that isn't necessarily your partner, but it can be applied is um, to the communication and understanding people's like we made those public to our team. So like our team knows my core fear. And I think by doing that, it actually allows them to see you as a little bit more of an actual individual. And I would say since we've started doing that, and then since,
Well, we need to do it with our current team. We actually are behind on doing it.
well,
We have some members that haven't taken it yet.
what I was going to parlay that into is like obviously communication has been a big talking point of this podcast. Like if you get nothing else out, like communicate with your partner, start there. Uh, we have also doubled down on the communication between manager and direct report. And since we've started doing that, we haven't had the whole they think we're evil and out to get them and stuff like that, because that nothing has been allowed to fester to that extent. We've had that open communication.
And I
But
think that also happens in our owners meeting.
yeah,
Like in a weird way, our owners meeting is like a one-to-one
yeah,
with each other. Like I'll sit down at an owners meeting and just be like, I'll be honest, I sucked last week.
yeah.
Like I didn't feel good. This happened.
Hmm.
I know it's not a good excuse, and it's weird because you'll hear like if there was what is it, a bug in the room, a fly on the wall. Listening to it, you would think I'm like talking to my boss, like trying not to get fired, but I genuinely feel bad because I'm like, I didn't pull my weight
Yeah,
as your teammate last week. This is my plan to do better this week. And I think some people listening to that might find that like kind of weird, like what is that, like an abusive relationship? But it's really like I feel I have a genuine respect for what we're trying to build.
yeah,
And it's pretty crummy when you pull all the weight and I have a bad week. Like it doesn't feel fair. And kind of to my core fear, like I don't want you to be like, wow, Tanner, you're evil.
no, that's fair.
And then your core fear, which was very interesting, which was basically feeling like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I could go through almost every huge fight we've had, especially at work.
Hmm.
And it's always me saying, like, why did you do this? Why? What were you thinking?
Yeah,
What brain were you
yeah,
using,
yeah,
to do that? And it's funny because I've even pointed out times with the team where they're like, me and Andrew butt heads on this. And I said, what'd you say to him? And I went, that's why. I said, you made him feel insecure, and he's a human too.
yeah.
And it's weird because you see them like, oh, I didn't mean that. So it's very interesting. Definitely take the Enneagram, take it
Hmm.
for you and your partner, your mom, your sister. It's really cool resource, totally free. There's other, like you can hear the disc analysis. To me, that's a little more professional.
Yeah.
But the
But
Enneagram is very personal of
I,
like what not to trigger about this person. And then also maybe what to praise. So if my core longing is to be told you are good, that sounds like that would be a good compliment for Andrew to somehow work into
yeah.
something with.
And I think that definitely know that between your partner, but that just like that starts going into just management in general of understanding those triggers. And then
It's a lot of psychology
it is. And
behind people.
what's actually helped a lot personally is knowing that, like, because before someone would do something along the lines of um, making it to where I didn't feel good enough, but I didn't understand the words or the feeling or the identity behind that. I was just mad and didn't understand why I was mad, but I was mad. Or
And
like,
typically blame it on the other person.
or even in a previous podcast, I talked about like 1-star reviews and stuff like that, and just getting a bad review or remark about the company. I take that very personally because
Yes, he
of
does.
what what we're trying to build here. So, uh, understanding that not feeling good enough, and it's funny. My running joke is like, everyone has childhood trauma. You just got to identify which one you have, and like everything stems back to it at some point. So understanding that is essentially my trauma and biggest fear of not feeling like I'm good enough, um, has allowed me to understand myself and my own triggers. So if someone does say something that triggers it, I don't react the same that I used to, because I can very quickly identify the emotion.
Mhm.
It's like I don't know, a toddler that's screaming they have feelings they just don't understand. You like, once you understand the feeling, you can probably control it a little bit
Yeah.
better.
And that's one of my last points on this subject of communicating to each other is there are still times where you're a human being and you're just pissed off.
Mhm.
And my biggest thing would be take a breather.
Yeah.
So there have been times I know I make you mad when I do. I think I did it yesterday that I just get so mad, and I'm definitely way more of a hothead than Andrew is. I call myself an undercover hothead because I think like looking at both of us, you'd be like, "There's no way it's her," but it's always like the 5'2" blonde that is just a ball of anger. And I just have to walk away because I'm like, I'm going to start throwing stuff against the wall right now. Like if I say another word or I'm going to use his core fear against him, I'm going to start saying things that I'm going to regret. So, and the staff will laugh at me because I'm walking laps
Mhm.
outside the building.
Just gotta
Sometimes
take a
I do
lap.
one, sometimes I do five. It doesn't really matter, but sometimes I'm just like, ooh, I need to take a deep breath because
Mhm.
I am just so heated at what's being said that I just need to calm down. So be a human. If you need to walk away, walk away. I would rather Andrew be mad at me because I walked away in the middle of a sentence, because that's what you typically get mad at, that you're like mid sentence and I just walk out.
Yeah, the mid sentence is annoying,
He doesn't like the mid sentence,
but
but it's
it's better.
improvement,
Yeah, it's better than a knockout drag out fight.
especially at
So
work, because typically there's someone like on the other side of the wall, you
right.
know? So don't forget, you always can walk away.
Yeah.
And I even tell our own staff that when they're getting frustrated with a panel or a piece or a design or whatever it might be, I'm like, do you just need to walk a lap?
Hmm.
Like you can go outside for a minute. Why don't you get your head on straight?
Yeah.
And they're always like, I can do that. And I'm like, you're not held hostage, you know?
Hmm.
So sometimes you just need to let your team know, like, you can go take a breather for a second and come right back.
Yeah.
So awesome. So that's really big on communication. And also, hopefully, through this, you see that, in my opinion, I think me and you are super open with each other. If you aren't this open with your partner and you're running a business with them, I would try.
Yeah. I don't. I
I
don't.
would be scared not to.
I don't know how. I don't know how you have a relationship, honestly, without being super open with your partner, let alone have
The business is
the
added.
personal relationship and the professional relationship
Yeah.
without being even more open. And
And if you don't like talking to them, there's probably a bigger issue
yeah,
going on
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So figure
Uh,
that out. And we do this every morning. So every morning we drink our coffee together.
yeah, that's what I was
And we've
going to
been
hint
doing
on.
that.
I didn't
Oh,
know
I'm sorry.
if you were going to bring that up or not.
Yeah.
But we have. Do we still call it the same thing? No, I'm gonna just name it. We don't call it this anymore out of respect, or political correctness, I guess. But we used to call it coffee and crackheads because we would literally wake up I'm sure it'll come out in all of our other podcasts and ones that we've done this far, but we used to literally pull all-nighters, wake up at like 1 a.m. Um, we couldn't really afford to be in the best of neighborhoods at the time.
At this point, though, we were off the futon. We were at a house.
We were
We were at a
part-time
house in
at a
a
house because
bad part of town.
yeah, we were, and then we ended up living in an RV after this. So like we hit rock bottom. Well, we didn't hit rock bottom again, but we couldn't afford to stay in the house. Anyway, we were not in the best of neighborhoods, up at random times, like trying to drink our coffee before we took like a 4-hour nap. And it was like, all right, time to go back in at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well,
There's a lot of people stumbling home.
yeah, when you're not in the best of neighborhoods at 2 a.m. in the sunroom drinking coffee, you see crackheads. So that's where it came to coffee and crackheads, and that's where it got its name. But that's not the important part of it. The important part of it was even back to that point in our both marriage and then professional career together, that was a time where we were just drinking coffee. We would have the occasional laugh, I guess, of like, we literally watched someone like try to break into a car like right in front of us because they didn't know that we were
Great
standing
entertainment.
there.
One time a whole house caught on fire.
Yeah, it was.
The fire department came. Everyone's
Yeah,
safe. Everyone's
but
safe.
my point being is that coffee time in the morning, it's typically never more than an hour, typically never less than 15 minutes. But that has, I mean, we did it today. We'll probably do it tomorrow.
Yeah, we do it on vacation.
That
Even like your parents know if we like go to like the lake with them, like we do our coffee in the
we
morning.
have our coffee in the morning together, and that has really been a good, because it's like you should be hopefully well rested. That's a good time, like you're just waking up and you're able to just talk about what's top of mind. Sometimes like you had hinted at the vacation part, like our weekend trip that we were just at, we were having coffee in the morning watching like hummingbirds at this Airbnb. So it wasn't like a super deep conversation, but it was just, we have that open time almost every day. We don't hit it every day, but almost every day that it's just open. If there's something that's bothering us, we can talk about it. If there's hopes and dreams, we can talk about it. But that 15 minutes to an hour has really been huge as well to, I would say, more of the personal side of husband and wife. Just we're good. Like,
Especially if you're working like 15-hour days. It's like we've never had an employee sit in on that. I don't think we've ever had anyone other than our dogs.
Yeah, no one
we like
sits
to
in
cuddle
on
with our
that.
dogs
Yeah.
during it. But no, it's a great time. And I'd also like to emphasize you are not a morning person.
Yeah.
When I first came around, I've always been a morning person. I'm like, wake up, I'm 100 miles per hour, I'm ready to go. And for the most part, I have my days. But Andrew was not. And I feel like this has almost kind of made you a morning person, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
So, and I will say, we literally like drag out of bed in our jammies, get our cup of coffee, and sit on the couch. And every now and then, sometimes we are exhausted and like fall asleep during it.
Yeah.
So we're not like absolutely perfect on it. And it's not like, I'm fully getting dressed and I'm making a cappuccino. This is like drip coffee with creamer, in our jammies. So, yeah, I think that our coffee time has been like a huge unlock. So if you don't talk to your partner a lot, I would recommend finding whatever that may be for you. And a small caveat, I would probably try to avoid like alcohol, making it like a drink every night, because I think that could go down a different path. And like I listen to Mel Robbins, and like she talks about her and her husband were going through a hard time, like not together, but they were trying to do a restaurant or whatever, and they were coming home and drinking every night, and it just gets worse and worse. So the coffee is a nice, like I'm pretty sure coffee's still a drug technically, it's caffeine.
Yeah.
But try to pick something relatively healthy that doesn't lead you down a bad path of just like drinking every night. Because I mean, sometimes we get wild and we brew a second pot.
And sometimes we get wild.
Sometimes we're like, we're extending coffee today.
Ultimately, I think that communication and frequent communication, I would say the more, if you both, personal and professional together, the communication should be even more. I was talking to a team member of ours, actually giving some advice of just figuring out, we do weekly one-to-ones with every direct report. So I meet, sometimes it's 7 minutes, sometimes it's 35 minutes, depends on what's going on with them. And it's just a moment kind of to that coffee and crackheads, but from a employee to direct report or manager to direct report scenario. And as we were talking, we realized there were some issues at home, and they didn't communicate at all. And I was like, I would say it's safe to say that the relationship between me and you is less important than you and your significant other. But yet me and you work on open communication and regularly talking more than you and your significant other. And it was like right away, they were like, yeah, that's probably right. That's probably a problem if my manager and I are focused on good open communication more than a significant other.
Well, and in everyone's defense too, to cut you off there a little bit, I don't think communication is taught very well to us. And
not at all.
The more that phones are coming into everything, like I have some friends who they can't talk to each other, but they can text each other.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I guess to each their own. I guess that's a start, but I feel like you need to be able to put the phone down and say uncomfortable things, and sometimes you might hurt the other person's feelings, but I think you should be allowed to say anything that you want. It's almost more of the delivery of it.
Yeah. And to that point, try going on a walk. Like this, I think this is even something that Alex and Layla Hermosi like push or preach or have mentioned before.
I've heard a
That
few people talk about it, walking and talking,
Mhm.
because you're not looking eye to eye.
Yeah.
You can do it while driving too. It's kind of a similar concept.
Yeah.
Except I just got onto my mom because she keeps like looking at me while she's driving. I'm like, look at the road.
Yeah, that's not safe.
So, mom, if you're
But
listening to this, you got to look at the road, mom.
but to that point is, maybe you can't look each other in the face and have that conversation right away because you're just socially awkward, and that's what this world is promoting at this point is
Yeah, it kind of is.
social awkwardness. But
Right.
so maybe it's going on a walk, but ultimately, like, you got to have that open communication.
And then you get to the point that you hook some microphones up and you just podcast it out to the world.
Now we talk to the world, well,
Yeah.
to each other, but the world's listening.
So if you could go back in time and tell yourself one piece of advice when it comes to working with your significant other, what do you think is one of the most important things?
Feel like we said it at this point. Most important thing is just you got to have open communication. Don't let anything fester. A big rule of thumb is like don't go to bed angry. So like if you're thinking about it, of whatever it is that they're frustrating you about, um, have that conversation immediately. This is probably going to lean, if I'm giving another book to read, would be like Radical Candor, which the whole premise of that book is just have the conversation right then, like immediately. Don't let anything fester, basically. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me to answer that, and a couple things that we haven't touched on would be, don't forget you're your own person. So Andrew coaches Little League Baseball. You're wanting to make an adult softball league
Yeah.
this year. So he's big into the sports side of things. I really like cooking and baking. Andrew hates cooking and baking. I'm always like, do you want to do this with me? He's like, no.
Now, where that pairs is I really love to eat.
He loves to eat. So I do luck out in
Yeah.
that I always have a taste tester. But those are things that we definitely do individually. And I think don't forget your individuality when you are owning a business and operating it with your significant other, because it's like you're spending every waking second together that you start to get a little clingy. And I would say me and Andrew are definitely clingy. Like we genuinely love hanging out all the time
Yeah.
together. But I do think it's healthy to like have our own little hobbies and our time away from each other. So definitely don't forget that. And then the other thing too that I think is really positive is don't forget the way that you talk about each other when you're in separate rooms. So if you think about it, whenever you are talking to someone else and you hear them talking about their significant other, I don't know why it's kind of like a common trend to like dog on your husband or dog on your boyfriend, or almost everyone does it. It's almost more negative than it is positive. But as soon as you hear someone say like, oh, I have the coolest wife and she does so much for our business, and just kind of like, I think you're a really good hype person for me. And it actually took me hearing you be like that to be like, wow, I should be that for him. Like, I think I was following more of the stereotype of like, oh, men are stupid. And that was so silly. So be your significant other's hype person, especially when they aren't in the room with you.
So any of our industry friends that I know through our networking and other conferences, I've always described Tanor as like, this is my secret weapon. And even locally to business owners and stuff like that we do work with, I've always been like, yeah, it's like, I think even the entrepreneurial like award that I won a few years ago, it was like, it might say my name on it, but this is a team sport. And it's always been, unfortunately, but I would get the accolades and I'm like, you have no idea what she's doing over here that really prop me up and make me look good to go, accept the trophy. But, yeah, no, it's the whole speak good of them outside of the room, whatever that is, public praise, blanking on the private criticism or whatever.
It goes a
But
long way.
yeah,
Like it means a lot to me when I hear you say stuff like that, especially like if you're on a different podcast or something like that and I hear you say something like nice about me, I'm like, oh, that was really sweet. Because I mean, could you imagine listening to your husband or your wife get on a public thing and just dog you? Like how embarrassing.
Right.
And then the other thing too is, as a woman in the industry, Andrew's my best advocate, to promote just how awesome we are. And so it takes men saying that women are awesome for women to rise up. So I'm a big supporter in that. And I definitely really appreciate that. Anything else you want to add before I wrap it up here?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, not too bad. So if you didn't get anything from this episode, the big key takeaways are communicate. It's problem number one. If you don't communicate, you have to start there and figure out whether it's coffee, whether it's going on a walk, but try to talk for, I'd say, at least 10 minutes a day. Try to talk uninterrupted without your phone in your hand. I feel like the phone, we didn't even talk about phones really because me and you are pretty good about not being glued to our phone.
Yeah.
But you cannot be glued to your phone. You have to be present.
Yeah.
Including those date nights. If you're just like that couple that's sitting at the table, both on their phone, like, why did you even go?
Right.
Kind of a waste of time. And then I also think that your end goals really have to match. So you need to be on the same team, kind of rowing the boat in the same direction. And then also don't forget that you are normal people. So not everything has to be work. Plan your time to have fun and plan your time to work, and you'll have a good time. So awesome. If you have any questions that you would like us to specifically address, please head over to wrapops.com. Ask us anything that you want. You can submit your question and we will answer it here on an episode. And be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check out our other episodes that we have posted. We have one episode posting every Tuesday, so definitely log on for that. And please share this with anyone else that you know in the industry or even outside the industry that maybe is working with their significant other and you think that this might help them. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you in the next episode.